Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. Each week, we'll bring you an insightful conversation from some of the best experts in our industry on how to advance our career. Join the collective of Black marketers across the world, advancing their brand as we work towards creating a collaborative community. Hey, good people. Welcome to the Marketing for the Culture podcast, powered by the African American Marketing Association. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. Today, we have the art director, designer, and illustrator from the African American Graphic Designers. We have Terrence and Dave. Welcome to the show. How are y'all doing today?
I'm doing great.
I'm doing great as well.
All right. So there is so much we can talk about when it comes to be creative. And me personally, I feel like that's the only thing that matters in this digital age. When it comes to content, it has to be visual. So I look forward to talking about just this branding and visual communication. So with that being said, how do you define branding and visual communication?
Wow.
I let Dave.
So I would say that it's to define branding is essentially, honestly, I know you said visual, but I think you would need to look beyond the visual, because it's everything. It's I've always kind of thought of it as, sure, it's the look and feel and, you know, typography, photography, color, all that sort of stuff. But also it's the culture a little bit too. You know, it's you know that attitude when you walk into a Starbucks and everyone there's in a good mood. Technically, that's part of their branding. You know, I think it can be even the way a business answers the phone. It can be your customer service. It can be, you know, does the company give you a hassle? So, you know, the legendary return policy of Nordstrom, that they'll just take anything back, even if they didn't sell it. I think we've all heard that story of the woman who returned a fur coat that was not purchased at Nordstrom's. But they just have that culture of customer first, and that infuses the brand, right? So to me, the definition of a brand is your entire experience with that organization, what that is and how you feel about it. That's the brand.
I love that. That's probably the best definition I've ever heard.
Yeah. Cool. So for me, it's not that I'm going to outdo Dave. It's not going to happen. But for me, it's creating the entire entity, including the soul. You know.
I love it. Okay, we're going to get deep today. Okay. So
wait. Don't set that expectation. We are completely silly. Might go off the rails.
Well,
we're going to try to one up each other. I'm positive of that. and you know, whatever happens to us later, it won't have been your fault, Michelle. So don't blame yourself with what happens later.
But yes. I think those are probably the most unique definitions I've ever heard. And I feel like I'm a student. I'm just going to say marketing and branding and, you know, practicing, reading, hiring, and learning from my graphic designers, which I think should be the first question. Why should someone avoid Fiverr? Why? What is the reason why someone should not go cheap when it comes to getting a logo and design work?
I think that if you're starting to, so a value should be put on something, but let's spread that out into other aspects to try to see if I can land this metaphor. So if you're looking to buy, a new cell phone, are you looking at the cheapest thing you can find? Or are you looking at the best thing you can find for what you can afford, right? Those are two completely different conversations.
Okay.
You know, so you want obviously everyone's got a budget and everyone's got limitations of what they can spend, but the lowest common denominator, the cheapest thing you can do, is not always going to be the best. The first things you should be looking for are, can you find a designer that you can have a conversation with? So I don't know that that's available through Fiverr. I'm sure there are plenty of great designers that have been told that's the way in to build a reputation, to garner some clients, get some networking done via Fiverr because of the low entry point of cost. And then hopefully you can grow your business that way, start raising your prices, that sort of thing, right? But the end result of what you should be delivering is, or what you should be looking for if you're seeking a designer, is not only design quality, but communication quality. So someone's that's going to be able to listen to your story, regurgitate your story, understand your story, and then illustrate your story. Because, and someone that also, here's another unique little twist, someone who understands that the logo they're designing technically isn't for you, it's for your audience. So, you know, that level of communication, I don't know that that's available via Fiverr.
Very well put. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to give, what's really interesting about Dave and I really appreciate his leadership and insight and wisdom, all seriousness. So I think you should go to Fiverr if you have no idea what you're doing and you don't have a lot of money, or if you know exactly what you're doing and you're willing to be patient enough to direct somebody to do exactly what you want. My clients tell me that the biggest problem that they face with Fiverr is that there's no the cultural interpretation is just awful. Like, they can't get people to really understand the things that they want to represent, the stories they want to tell. And I think that a lot of the clients that we get, it's almost better when they have had experiences with places like Fiverr, because now they're at that point where they understand the difference between talking to somebody across the world in like a small box trying to get a really intricate design done, and talking to somebody who has this level of experience and service and care and empathy that you're just not going to get for $5.
I love it. On top of that, what's your take when it comes to these, I guess, design contests, like 99 designs, things of the nature? And once you answer that, I'll tell you the reason as far as the direction I'm heading.
I think there's a crowd for that. I'm never going to knock anyone's hustle or business model. I don't always think the best way to develop a long-term relationship is contest. You can think about it as dating. We've seen The Bachelor, right? And The Bachelorette. So we know how those things go. So, I mean, they're good if you want to get something done quickly, if you want to have multiple people like work out an idea, but I always feel like it's really better to work with somebody, give them a fair chance to create all the ideas based on the research that you have provided them, and then work together to build a relationship. I think that's the better route, at least from my experience. What about you, Dave?
I will gladly knock that business model. I feel like we're one of those ESPN arguing shows or CNN where you're Republican, we're just back and forth yelling at each other. So that particular business model, what I don't like is how many designers that are going to be out there busting their chops for literally no reason. And the idea that, you can just write a list of what you want, throw it out in the world, and a designer will see that list and create exactly what you want. I think that there just needs to be deeper conversation than that. I've done a lot of logos in my day, and every logo that went off the rails, which isn't many, by the way, every logo that's gone off the rails went off the rails because of lack of communication. So, yeah, I just think contests are manipulative and they take advantage of younger designers who are desperate to fill their portfolio, desperate to make a name for themselves and want the experience. But, we've all heard the joke, my landlord's not going to take experience the first of the month. So now that said, I gave away design early in the day because I was desperate to get a portfolio done. So maybe I'm still harboring some bitterness from that's just what I see when I think of contests because of my own experiences early on as a youngster out the gate. But yeah, contests just really irk me whenever I see it. I always think, well, why didn't you just call the best 3 designers in your town and talk to them and then maybe pay them a little for a pitch? Every designer, you pick 3 to 5, everybody gets paid a little bit to pitch their idea, and then you pick one, and then that's who you go with. So they're not wasting their time.
That's a more sophisticated approach, and most people who are entrepreneurs entering design for the first time have no idea how to get to that level of sophistication. They are just because this is a capitalistic society that has grown from free labor. They're always for the cheapest, quickest, and they really don't care. I do hate the fact that it feels like it commoditizes, I hope I said that right, the individual, because just like I have this job and I don't really care about the relationship. And I think that's a detriment to everyone.
Yeah. So the reason why I wanted to knock this out in the beginning of the conversation, because I kind of want to hopefully create like a value buildup, right? From low value as to the Fiverr, the 99 designs, and then build up to why you should hopefully find your own personal graphic designer. But I know for myself, I made a lot of mistakes. And I remember, 7, 8 years ago, someone quoted me $250 for a logo. And I was like, no way. But then I ended up spending $250 probably on 5 different people on Fiverr because I couldn't get what I wanted. Right. And, fast forward to now, when it comes to branding, I don't play. And I think I've been able to work with some great graphic designers because of the relationship, because of the communication, which allows me to even charge what I'm capable of charging now for my services. But I think it does take a lot of mistakes for people to see that value of paying $250, $500 for any type of design work. And now I don't even question the designer. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Let me. And then some of it's peace of mind too.
Right. So
we'll get to that as well.
Yeah. And I know a lot of it for us, it's like just the quality of service. And that's just it, whether it's marketing or design, our creative industries are very much the same. I do wanted to touch back on what you said or asked initially, and it was what was branding and what is visual communication in a way. Yeah. So what I have been learning is that interpersonal communication plays a heavy role in what we do as designers. And I'm sure you as a marketer also experience that. So I think the heart of what I do, at least, because we all have these paths, is make sure that communication between people and clients is on point. And believe it or not, that takes, it takes a ton of work. So the heart of what I do is like trying to get communication systems in line so that the visuals can represent what we are trying to convey to both the target audience, to the client, and to the designers and creatives that work with us.
Yeah. When it comes to, I think one thing I see a lot, and I guess I'll just use myself as an example. Hey, I'm starting, I kind of want you to, I guess, walk me through your process, right? Or what you would do. Hey, I'm a business owner. I need a logo and I'm writing a book. I'm looking for a graphic designer. That's usually what I'm hit with. So I'm approaching you in that regard. So how would you work with me?
Do you want individual answers or the collective AAGD answer?
I'm open for both. I want to talk about the organization later.
Okay. So I think we'd probably both start the same way. I would immediately have questions. Mm-hmm. is the logo for the author, or is the logo some treatment that promotes the book? Like, what's the logo for specifically? Is this your first book? Like, there's so many questions about the history of the author, their experience, what they're trying to accomplish. Is there a publisher involved? Are you self-publishing? Are you selling it on your own? Is it going to be on Amazon? Like, there's so many questions about that I'd want to know. Because once I know what lane the author's in and what lane the book is in, then I would know what to research to see what exists in the world that is close to what that author is trying to accomplish with that book, right? So, is this a mystery writer? Are you, like all those things that you'd want to know to better brand it. So let's assume the logo is for the author, which seems weird. Most, because I go to a lot of author I go to a lot of their websites, and they typically have that same footprint. At least the successful ones have the same footprint for all their books. For instance, what's the Tipping Point guy's name?
Gladwell, Malcolm.
There you go. So the front of his 3 primary books that he did like over the last 10 years, exact same design, exact same font, everything. I don't know that he was really branded with a specific logo. He was certainly branded as a personality, and he had that going. But I would actually question, I might talk myself out of that particular part of the project. Like, do you need a logo? Like what do you, as an author, what do you really need? Like, you need branding, but that doesn't equal a logo. That equals a look and feel to establish what the personality is. And here's an interesting thing. Are you a writer of fiction, or are you someone like Brené Brown? Because someone like Brené Brown, you're branding her, not the book. So there's so many questions that I would want to ask before I even would begin to be able to put together some sort of plan or estimate for that.
Yeah, I love that, because I think those are usually the first 2 things I see when it comes from, I'll say from a personal brand standpoint, because they want to get into coaching, they want to get into speaking, right? And it's just like, I need a logo with a business card and a book cover.
The Brené Brown path.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. I love the questions. I know we're just scratching the surface, but do you think your line of questioning and details allows you to evaluate the price point for your client?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I was just saying, you can fish along the same line.
Yeah, because you have to know. I mean, you have to know what it is they want to accomplish, because then you can sort of plan out in your head, okay, what are they really going to need? What are all the pieces? You're also trying to, when you're asking those questions, you're not just looking for the answers, you're looking for the way they're answering you. Like what kind of person is this? Are they going to be difficult to work with? Because that's going to be a factor, and maybe ask about their past experiences with the designers, because that might be a factor. So yeah, there's a lot to figure out in terms of, like I think every answer affects or allows you to price it better. But as with a lot of things, Terrence and I think if you gave us 10 projects and we priced them all in a isolated, in a bubble, he did it, I did it, and then we showed them to you, it'd be just a massacre. It'd be all over the place. That's what's so great, because when we get together, we'll price some stuff, and we together we work it out, and we get there. So it's like, are we, is this too low? Is this too high? And then we hash it out and we figure it out, and we're always, I feel like, closer to the truth when we actually have that chat back and forth. Because so the questions are not all client related. Sometimes the questions are internal.
Yeah. Yeah, those questions are like jabs in boxing when you're like sizing a person up before you like make the final decisions as to how to do the final blow. But I do agree. Some of the times, like the questions that we ask, like we'll come together and then just go, what would they pay pentagram? Like, why don't we deserve that? And so, sometimes we do take in consideration value and pricing also. And where the person wants to be. I mean, all of this stuff is really important.
I like to talk about, I guess, going back to, once again, the communication, the relationship, the questions, right? And one thing I learned from my graphic designer was, like, I was that person, I'm like, hey, I need a logo, right? And he'll be like, well, what is this for? What do you plan on doing? And it's like, okay, so that logo kind of turns into, I'll just say, a small business package, right? Or that book cover I need. He was very good at upselling me. Clearly I have money to blow. But when I'm thinking, I need a front and back book cover, he's like, well, physical or digital? Oh, let me get you some bookmarks. Let me get you some social media cards, or some postcards and some social media cards. So how important is it for the graphic designer to be forward thinking for the client?
I mean, does a designer want to be successful? I mean, I guess that's the question. Yeah, I think it's imperative, especially, I'm glad to hear that your designer is thinking about sales. I think that's one of the things that we find a lot of designers aren't thinking about. And even in terms of service, being able to think about the things that your client needs and to be able to provide them before they ask for it, that has to be, to the client, it must feel like the best service ever, even if they have the money for it. And then in addition to that, it does build trust with the client.
And that can all be put under the umbrella of strategy.
Yeah.
Of like, what are you going to need? And then you're thinking, all right, well, I can just design a beautiful book cover and give you a logo and wash my hands of it. Good luck. But that doesn't do any good for the designer. The best thing for that designer is for that book to be as successful as possible, because then you're going to do another book and you're probably going to call me back. And other authors are going to say, hey, I loved your book launch. Who did all that stuff for you? And you're going to refer me. So my most important goal actually is to strategize how can I help you be successful? Because that's how I'm going to get more business as a designer. So the idea that there are designers out there that don't think that way is kind of crazy. Like that should be taught in school. Like it's crazy to me that that's not taught in school.
Yeah, but we know it's not. And we know, like, a lot of the members of our group, they're still learning that, because it's like they're still stuck on what is graphic design and logo making and maybe branding, that they're not taking this holistic approach to business success.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I guess you answered my question. I was going to say, how do graphic designers think? But I guess it's just, and maybe it's society. I think I'm at a good age. I love my age. But I do say after 82, I really don't know what happened, because I do feel like there's a lot of linear thinking and not the holistic approach that was mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate. I mean, in terms of sales, negotiation, or even communication, as designers and as marketers, we are some of the most creative people in the world, right? Yet we have a tendency to fear these things because we think it makes us a certain way. But if we take those skills that we have and apply them to sales, we can always find solutions that other people have not found, especially if we choose to be empathetic when we approach our clients and try to look at it holistically, to not just elevate ourselves, but the people that we work with and the culture.
Yeah. I know today, obviously, we're in the world of Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, right? So I come across a lot of people. I want to talk about just overall creative direction. What are some of the best ways to merge branding when it comes to, I guess, content, graphics, and then video, if you can speak to that as well? Because a lot of people say they're a creative director, and I've realized, well, they only do graphics or they only do video. So what does that mean to you, and how can we combine all of that?
I'm curious, in what instances are you coming across people who say that they are creative directors? Are you saying that they have experience in the field, or is this because they are making themselves like this thought leader and they are using social media and other platforms to carry out their vision?
Well, we kind of talked about this a little bit. I mean, I guess before we start recording, just the word creative director, like especially now we're starting to do a lot more photo shoots. I'm seeing people have that in their title, creative director, and they're a photographer, right? But then they'll say, they're going to do the photo shoot, they're going to scout the location for you or whatever. And then some people that only do graphic design, and then maybe they have a little bit of strategy, or then you have someone else that's a creative director, and they come from a marketing strategy graphic designer, and then they have maybe one or two people that are a videographer. So I feel like the word is, I guess, loose. It's becoming more broad, right? And for me, there's a lane for graphic design, and then there's a lane for photo and video, but we're kind of lumping everything under visual.
Yeah.
Nowadays. So just curious about your thoughts around that.
Well, I think it's really interesting because of social media and everybody having the ability to create their own content on their own platform in their own way. And then they're just like loosely grabbing at these terms. I know for me, creative director kind of controls the vision, and it doesn't really matter what background. Matter of fact, I know, and a couple of agencies that I've worked with, the creative director has come from a writing background. And then under the creative director, there's an art director who controls the look. So a lot of people right now who are saying that they're a creative director may actually be the art director, or they might just be people who think they have a really great vision and really don't know how to like take a project and make sure that it is thoroughly and thought produced. Dave, do you think somebody like Nick Cannon would he call himself a creative director? What about all these other people who just come from out the blue?
I would call him a Renaissance man, but okay.
Well, there's a lot of this is a minefield, and Terrence, later I'm going to get you back physically. So the creative director and art director, I think Terrence hit it right on the head. It depends on the institution and how they choose to define what that role is, right? So I've done some work for publishers and publications that the creative director actually had a journalism background. But they took on that role because they had a vision of what they were after. I think the same thing can happen in an advertising agency or an agency that does everything. Like, since there are some smaller agencies that do take on advertising video projects, right? So someone has to be in charge of that whole vision. But they may not necessarily qualify to be a creative director at a media company. Someone who just does, application design or primarily web design, mobile design, that sort of thing. So it's this odd title that I feel like it's not set in stone. Like when you brought up the question, you said it was loose. And I think it is. And I really do think it's by institution, by business, how they choose to define what that role is. Because I can guarantee you, I've run into people who call themselves art directors who are more creative directors and vice versa. And then just about every senior designer I've known, it's just lacking in the title. They could be a creative director anywhere. Titles are weird. And I think it's really, truly by business and how you choose to define what that is.
I wanted to ask both of you a question. How do you feel about people who have a YouTube channel or Instagram and they have become so popular that they call themselves a creative director? Do you feel like they have truly earned that title?
Unless you are teaching the skill you are not a creative director on YouTube.
Okay.
So for
I would
me,
say it depends on if they've built an audience.
That's a
Because
good point.
if they've built a substantial audience, they did something.
but what happens is, so this is what happens with personal brand and audience building. Like I think my stuff is dope, right? And I do consultations because of that, but I can't replicate my success, right? And you're not going to put in the hours or spend the money that I do to replicate my success. So I think that's where that gets distorted. So that's why I said, unless they're teaching how to use Adobe, unless they're telling you this is the camera, this is how I shoot, this is how I edit. Because I love videography. I will if I was a designer, I'd probably save a lot of money, but graphic designer. But I literally sit and watch travel vlogs on YouTube just because I love the editing. I think it's amazing, right? But there's no way I'm going to pick up that camera or edit. I just admire the work. And then some of those people that I do watch, they do have videos or master classes teaching that, but that's not my lane. But there's so many people that have that skill set that think they can learn that. And they feel like if they learn that, they're going to be just as successful, but their success is going to look different.
Right. And then I think, like you said, if they're teaching somebody, as much as I want to say that's not a part of it, I do feel like that is a part of it, because a lot of people want to be creative directors because they're like, I'm a visionary. But when it comes to leading other creatives to carry out that vision, it falls apart.
So to me, that's the problem with the influencer thing, right? Because people want to be influencers. They want the end result of an influencer, but they don't want to build up. And that's pretty much anything, corporate, creative, whatever, And but what happens when you become that quote unquote influencer, people think if they follow you, they can replicate your success. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't believe that to be true.
Yeah, it's not. There's a very famous, I don't know if he's famous, but a well-known designer on YouTube who has classes, has strong branding, and has other people in his staff or on his staff that all teach classes and give speeches and put on webinars and seminars and things like that. And they have a really big following. And they're constantly talking about design, and you probably know who I'm talking about. But when I first ran across them, and to this day, I've never seen any work they've ever done. Like, they don't have a portfolio, which when I first came across them was really frustrating because I thought, oh, they know what they're talking about. I like their branding. Let me go see the work they've done. Because I love looking at other people's portfolios. I love it. And I just couldn't find any work any of these people had done. So then it falls. Some of the advice they give does make sense and sounds great. But to me, it's kind of like those late night TV commercials where somebody's telling you all you got to do is buy my program and I'll teach you how to sell real estate and you'll be a millionaire like me. And like
1995.
It feels like that. Like, and I'm not really going to listen to somebody who doesn't have this demonstrated experience, i.e. portfolio of work that I can look at and go, okay, yeah, they know what they're talking about.
But I think I agree, but that speaks to the power of the brand, right? Yeah. Because his brand is so powerful. Now he can charge that quote unquote 5,000, 20,000 for just a logo or just strategy. And that's pretty much a direct quote, right? So I don't know, but I agree with you, but I also think that speaks to the power of brand that allows you to command your prices.
Yeah, but I think the only thing he's charging for is him talking about it. Like, I don't know that they do it anymore. This particular entity I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you're right. And I think we're on the same page because I listen to the videos. And why? Because YouTube is paying great.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I found out how much, because I was a part of that group for a little bit. I found out how much they were making doing it. And I was like, oh, that's just ridiculous. It's a ridiculous amount of money. What I do, the thing that I see that sucks is that now there are so many people within our industry who want to be that, but they don't even really develop the work. And I'm not gonna lie, I find it to be very frustrating.
Oh, and I know for me in the beginning, so I started my business in 2013 and I wrote my book in 2014. And that's probably when I learned the most about digital marketing. And I spent a lot of money taking a lot of classes, master classes, buying courses. And it's just very little substance, right? But they're making money off of volume. And what happens is, because I fell for it, because I'm thinking, oh, if I do these steps and I create a course and I spend so much in ads or I build up my community, I can make 10,000 a month or whatever. And that didn't work for me. I just found my success in other ways. And I keep seeing people get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. I think people want the easiest and flashiest sometimes. And I think they just buy into the belief of the brand, which is very unfortunate. And I think both like Michelle, you and Dave and I, through building these collaborative cultures that we are building, maybe we're trying to do our best to help people understand that that's not exactly the way to success, not within your community, and not as somebody who can be turned to as a solid person within the field. I know we as AAGD, we make our money from doing the work, and then the money that we get from the work.
Novel idea.
Right. That work does trickle in the community. And that is one of our biggest goals, to make sure that younger Black and African American creatives have opportunities to work for people who care about them and who will be super transparent with everything. Like we post our contracts and our proposals in the group because we know as designers how hard it was or how we had to sneak to steal those so we can understand process and pricing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The whole proposal thing. Like I've told Terrence this before. I had to see someone in an accounting department when I was working for a startup printed an invoice on the printer and probably just forgot to pick it up, or it was just there on the printer and I saw it. And I had never seen, this was like probably 15 years ago, I had never seen an invoice to that level of detail before. Like, for my freelance, when I was freelancing at the time, it would say project management and design. Those are the only two lines on that invoice. I looked at this thing. There was, and this is what speaks to titles. So I saw there was a designer on there. There was a junior designer on there. There was a traffic coordinator on there. There was a project manager on there, creative director, art director on there. And there was the account executive. There were 7 people on that thing that had all put on hours, that had all ticked off some hours for that particular project. And I was just astonished at how granular the roles could be. And so when I was doing my own thing, I was like, man, I must be wearing like 7, 8 hats. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Guilty.
It's good for our younger designers to see proposals like that, to see all the detail and all the writing that goes into it. Because proposals, sometimes they're just a couple of pages, but some of them are 4 or 5 pages long.
Yeah. Yeah. And proposals for us are all about like strategy. Like, what is it? Even if we know that we're not going to get it, like, how does this set us up for the next interaction with the person? Yeah. And back to communication, like it's all about how you communicate and how you set the standard for how you want to interact with everybody as your brand.
Do you think the proposals / RFP, request for proposal, those are necessary to get the bigger clients, bigger, I'll just say 10,000 and above. But
So I have a couple of different feelings about it. I don't think it's necessary.
okay.
Um, I do think it should be part of your practice. It is a pain. We all know it is a pain, but like getting to the point where they are easy and you don't fear it and you just like swing the bat no matter what because you don't know you'll land is a strategy for the survival of your company because you never know what's coming up for the next few months. And if you put in a few RFPs, you might get lucky. And we've gotten very lucky. Well, not lucky, we're skilled, but we've been able to land a bunch of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Your thoughts, Dave?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it's just, actually, I would be curious to hear how when Terrence started out, he said he didn't think it was necessary. I want to hear you expand on that a little bit.
Well, because, a lot of people have businesses where they get consistent word of mouth. And once you penetrate a specific vertical, a lot of times you really don't have to answer RFPs because it grows. And then in addition with AAGD, we have this digital marketing, we have this community. So people are being driven to the website. So it generates leads, which generates revenue. So we could kind of decide to not answer RFPs.
Right.
But then, I just think we should. Just to be aggressive.
Because it could be argued that we specialize in doing work for nonprofits
and social justice.
If you look at the biggest things we've done, that could be a pretty strong argument that maybe that would be the vertical we're in, even though we haven't made any determinations yet.
Yeah. I think that's the advantage of being in business for a while, no matter what you think, because I have some clients who are kind of figuring out the same thing. No matter what you think, after a while, certain people keep finding you. And then you're like, oh, okay, I guess this is where we are. And that's exactly what's happened to us.
What advice do you have for graphic designers in order for them to build their portfolio, in order for them to charge whatever they think is, reasonable? I think we all struggle in pricing. I've recently come to the point that my price is my price, but
my name is my name. You sound like Marlo from The Wire. I would advise them to educate themselves and to suspend belief. I think the two things that had changed my view, as African Americans, Black people, Black creatives, value for us is not as high as it should be in the community. That's just how I feel, my personal opinion. And so suspending belief and understanding that, you can do whatever you want to do as long as you back it up and have the work ethic should eventually push you through this stream where you meet enough people to understand your value and don't hesitate to charge. And then the educational component is reading things like the pricing guidelines by the Graphic Artists Guild, listening to people who you might not like, but they have good information online, and just figuring out holistically like what you can do and what you offer and how to reach the target audience that is willing to pay for what you have to offer.
What about building the business as a graphic designer? I think it can be that misconception of like one and done. So how can a designer keep a continuous pipeline of business?
Market. Dedicate time to marketing. And it's something that I read a long time ago. I think 20% of your time is supposed to be dedicated, at least 20% of your time, market our own business. And I think that's where I see a lot of us failing. It's where I failed in the beginning. And the other thing that I think people need to take into consideration is how quickly can you get other people involved in your business and to like sacrifice slow growth over immediate finance.
Elaborate.
Oh, so you can make, $150 like taking as many flyers as you can, right? Or you can just go, okay, I'm gonna take my time, be a little bit more strategic, work with maybe some corporations and find a designer that I can work with so that they share part of the profit, I share part of the profit, but I can go and do business development to bring in more money so that I can keep both myself and this designer fed, as opposed to just myself and then having to struggle with wearing 60 million hats as you try to grow a business.
Okay. Recently I sent you a job description for the Houston Symphony, right? They're looking
Hmm.
for, I think, a junior graphic designer, if I'm not
I believe so.
mistaken. So if you haven't already, check out the AAMA job board. That's a plug. Um, so you mentioned flyer. I'm thinking college. I'm thinking club party. Had a good time back in the day. And I'm thinking Houston Symphony needs a graphic designer, right? What are some tips you can give designers on how they can figure out what type of design work they need to be doing? Because I know for me as a small business owner, this, once again, spending money, making mistakes. I'm like, this designer is good, but they're not conveying what I need for who I am and the brand I'm trying to develop. Whereas they're looking for that immediate finance that you mentioned earlier. So how can a designer decide, I guess, what type of design they need to focus on, what niche they need to focus on?
I think that's really hard. Dave, what was your experience?
My experience was I was told, so I did everything. So if someone called and needed an ad or a logo or a poster, I said yes. And one of the things that was happening is that my portfolio would show a great poster, but it wouldn't show any satellite projects that tied it all together that proved that I could think that way. So I would say young designers should be thinking about their portfolio as a series of case studies almost to show that they can, because I've been to several sites of young designers who have great logos, but I don't see anything in their portfolio that shows they know how to lay out type, that they know how to handle a multi-page document, that they know how to make the logo, the business card, the website, the email, the social media graphic, and the brochure feel like they belong together. So in terms of a young designer trying to get the work they want to get, sometimes I think it requires say you have a real client and it's one brochure. Either try to upsell that client to get other aspects of work they can do, or honestly, if you're young, what I did was I would just invent another project for that client and have it in my portfolio. Because I knew I needed to show, and I knew it because I didn't know it. I was told this by unsuccessful interviews I went on. Was I need to show the ability to strategically think between different aspects of a large thing, right? So I would say try to build things that belong together. Try to string multiple pieces that belong in the same campaign. And sometimes that might mean faking a brochure because you designed a logo for someone and maybe you designed their email banner. Well, now mock up a brochure so you can sort of show what that whole thing looks like. Mocking up, that can be a waste of time, or not a waste of time, but it can burn your time up. So you're better off trying to upsell and actually get paid to do that. But yeah, in terms of like you said, finding a designer that feels like they can deliver the whole thing, they're good, but maybe they don't have the experience across the board. It can be hard to sort of prove yourself if your portfolio doesn't dictate it. And it may very well be a real world thing that you don't know how to do that yet. So to me, the way to do it is, if you can't upsell, do some of them on your own, build it out to where it feels like, so at least you're attempting to put together some sort of holistic campaign, right? So I don't know if that necessarily answers your specific question, but I think that the advice there for younger designers is to show the ability to integrate strategically across multiple platforms.
It does. I think basically the designer has to take a little bit more initiative, right? Especially if they're early on, whether they want to present it to the client in charge or just to do it and have it, for the next opportunity.
Yeah. And Um, it took me a long time to, I used to think that just a portfolio of just logos floating in space was enough. I used to see my heroes do the same thing. Like I was just going to suddenly be Paul Rand just because I was just had a bunch of logos on a website. So yeah, to be the ability to show an entire thing, stationary, even like just sort of the tools that a company might need. So we're working on a project now where we're not building out the deliverables, but we're providing graphics and elements for those deliverables. So that can be something that, an icon family put together how the color palette might work together. Like sure, you can dictate, oh, here's your 6 color color palette in a brand guideline. Well, now build something with it, like show how those colors work together. It could be something really simple. Yeah, I think designers really need to learn how to present the whole vision. And then that, honestly, to bring it back around, is generally what lands you the experience to become a creative director, is being able to see the entire thing.
Before we wrap up, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about the African American Graphic Designers, AAGD, as you've been calling it throughout the episode?
Sure. I feel like, yeah, Terrence said his sound just went out. So the AAGD started off, and hopefully Terrence will get his sound back so he can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Started off as like a social group, like a Facebook group, and it was really just a place for designers to have a safe place to talk about things. To have a Black designer, you probably didn't know other Black designers, or there certainly wasn't another Black designer at your job, and there may have been some aggression, some microaggressions that happened to you, and you wanted to get it off your chest. So what better place to do it in an online forum was to present work and to talk about what had gone on in your life and what had gone on your job, and be able to vent, to get that stuff off your chest and just have a safe place to talk. Also, it was a place to post work, present work, like get the opinion of the crowd. So you might post a poster design or a couple of logo designs and go, hey, what do you think? And then a bunch of people would get into the comments and give you advice on some creative direction on maybe what's working, what's not. Well, as that started to grow and grow and grow, it got up to, I want to say 3,000 people, maybe more. And then it was determined, well, this is turning into like a membership kind of thing. So why don't we just do that for real? Because, we had both had bad experiences with AIGA, where we never really felt like we were part of that, included in that community. So the idea was, all right, well, let's turn this into an actual membership organization where we're trying to provide enough information, feedback, instruction, advice, community to where people feel like it's worth it to actually pay a membership fee to be part of this thing. So it grew beyond just the Facebook group. In the middle of all that, through his Google AdWord marketing, started getting work. So then it became, well, not just a membership organization, we might be an agency. So then it became, all right, well, let's try to do both. I know that's crazy, but let's do both. And what's happened is, he and I and maybe one or two other people are doing the bulk of the work, but the ultimate goal is that group, that membership group that exists, there will be, and there probably, I would say, a good 7 or 8 really good designers that we trust that are part of a larger team, so that overflow work, or if we don't have time to do something, hey, let's call so-and-so, they're really good at PowerPoint, or let's call so-and-so, we love their illustrations. Let's call so-and-so, they can bang out 3 great logo ideas. So now it's sort of turned into this agency, but almost an instructive agency, because we're helping younger designers. It's almost like, those teaching hospitals where you go to a hospital and there's an actual doctor with you, but there's also a medical student standing right next to him. And they might be the one to take your blood, not the actual truly trained person. It's kind of like that, where we might hand off a smaller logo project to an inexperienced designer. We're still going to vet their ideas before they get to the client. But it's still sort of this opportunity for us to provide experience for younger, inexperienced designers of color. So it's all of those things: membership group, place to vent, and a sort of a community center, almost like a barbershop for designers, and,
nice.
And an agency.
Loving these analogies. Go ahead. Terrence, did you want to add to it?
No, I think they've covered it. I feel like we're, a couple who's like, well, tell us how y'all met. And each of us have some version of the story. That's a great story.
Yeah, we do a lot of analogies. Some land, some don't.
Yeah. I would say a lot of mine don't, but luckily there's Dave to clean it up.
I love graphic designers. I think I've been fortunate to work with some great ones. I work with, I think, 2 or 3 right now. And I get a lot of questions, and I'm like, I'll try to mentor you the best I can. So I'm glad to dedicate this episode to the graphic designers. Black graphic designers matter. But is there anything else that we need to cover that you feel like just needs to be included that we didn't talk about? Because, I'm all about us coming up together.
Well, yes. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for being one of the people who's in a small group of 3 from different backgrounds where we get to talk about creativity. I think what we're doing is what needs to happen more often with us at a larger scale. And I think we're just at the beginning of all of us coming together and really creating some marvelous and miraculous Black excellence.
Absolutely. What is some of the best ways people can get in touch and become a member, actually?
You can do aagd.co/join. That's a good way if you want to join. You can also just find us on all of social media at AAGD_co.
All right. Well, we're going to have those links in the show notes, so be sure to join. You can join both organizations. It's not either or, it's and both. Dave and Terrence, it's been a pleasure talking to y'all today. It's been great. Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Thank you for listening to Marketing for the Culture podcast. If you haven't already, please subscribe, whether it's on Apple, Google, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. And of course, our videos are on YouTube. If you have a moment, feel free to give us a rate, review, or just comment. We appreciate our sponsors for their continuous support. Also, if you're interested in learning more about our sponsors or becoming a member of the African American Marketing Association, visit aa-ma.org.